I'm recording this as Volume 3 is compressing. It's late at night. I thought I already made the Volume 3 video, so in advance, I know I tweeted earlier about that. I'm sorry about that. That was my bad. I thought that it was already compressed and ready to upload. I've been tired today. So here we are in Volume 4. And you may say, didn't you say there was about a year or two's worth of time they had to prepare? Yes. But unlike before, that year or two of travel time is mostly uneventful. It's weird to say that for a series like this. So I'm actually able to brush over this pretty quick. Volume 4 starts a whole year later. So yeah, 2 volumes in a row and 2 different time skips. But you gotta keep in mind, these are intense events. You got to give people a break. Yes, you got to time break a little bit here and there so people can evolve. And that's my general explanation, is that the events in these books are the big climactic things, and I don't want to bog people down the day to day. You might go, but isn't these massive time breaks going to make you had to? Well, we're in a pseudo steampunk fantasy setting, so while moving places is fine, you can get there in a decent amount of time. People have boring lives. Like, I don't know how to explain. Even when you're sitting here preparing for a world-ending tragedy, when you're dealing with somebody who has a god complex and thinks they are the next destined chosen one of God, things tend to go a bit slower. And I say there's a year time skip, but it's really a year before we pick back up with the only remaining main character who hasn't gotten the spotlight, which is Amaranth. Because Ember has been doing things in the background, and there are various... I could write like a little mini novella of just what Ember does during the 1 year. In fact, you know what? That's where we're going to start. We are going to start during the 1 year with what Ember does during it. So, Ember is aware of Aurea. She knows her. She also knows that as she also knows... Ember is aware that since she was associated with the regicide... mass endangering war criminal, she has to make herself scarce. Because she refuses to disown him or turn on him. That's not how she is. She was already a war criminal from attacking the Crimson Keep. She's already not trusted because she attacked the Scarlet Order location on the Eastern Continent. And now she's been involved in the Northern Continent attack. There is no place she can go reasonably. But she and Soke had been planning to go dark, so she has a means of getting around. It's an amphibious flying vehicle with built-in stealth functions. Built-in stealth functions based on the runic knowledge that Zoge got from the crystal, from the Light of Knowledge. And since Aurea is an automaton, she has a tracker built in. So you have this amphibious, self-sustaining little flying apartment with autopilot, because Zoge wanted all the bells and whistles for when he and Ember were running around being a command center, because they have to always look good. It's genuinely like, it really is that. He wanted to, if he was going to survive, he wanted to effectively be Nick Fury. Always show up at just the right time in the middle of people's conversations, looking like he just got out from costuming, and looking like $1 million. Because people shut up when you show up with style, and that gives you time to either do something real quick and get out, or to say what you need to say before anybody can say something stupid, or ask too many questions. So this is a luxury apartment that flies. And since it flies, can't be detected by whatever means they currently have, and is amphibious, she can be wherever she wants to be, in class and style, with minimal risk. All she has to do to go grocery shopping is find a remote town that has a frickin' farmer's market and buy up some food. That's it. So she's golden in that regard. But she's not golden in the broad scheme of things. after the fall of Regis and Zoge's death, she is shooketh. She is not quite as confident as she once was. But she recognizes that Zoge has left her the greatest legacy he possibly could. He has trusted her of all people with his master plan and gave them like a stand-in for a child. Aurea is not very experienced. She has all this knowledge, but she has very little experience. And he's putting the weight of the world on Aurea, but he's having her emotionally and mentally train with the most heroic people he knew, which is his friends. And in order to respect that, and out of appreciation for all he did, including trusting her, she's not used to people really trusting her. She hates him for having died, and she'd kick his ass for it if he came back to life, which he's not going to. But she has a new resolve that she will see his plan through, and she's going to trust his judgment of his friends, because that worked out immensely well in their plan. Yeah, he ended up dying, but everything they accomplished on their to-do list, aside from him dying, was done with flying colors. The Lightning Queen is buried under a mountain of rubble, and that won't stop her, but it'll slow her down enough to give them time to prepare and mobilize a force and unite everybody against her. But also it gives them time to go collect the artifacts where, even if her minions get them, she won't be able to get her hands on them right away. So they bought them time to collect the relics and figure out what's going on. And among the artifacts that he left behind for her was a glove. A glove with a refashioned version of the key that is incomplete on her hand. And instead of using the glove, because she's stubborn and clever, she literally uses her fire powers to burn a perfect reflection of the remaining part of the key into the runes that were already on her hand, thus finishing the key for herself, and then she burns the glove, just destroys it. So nobody can have it, except her. So her first journey is to go and collect that. That's... Except the Band of Choice has a different defense mechanism than she was expecting. And so she goes to get the Band of Choice because she knows if she's going to do this, and if Aurea is going to do this, they need to make sure that they are protected. That if Aurea is going to confront her, she is the Circlet of Choice, and that if Ember wants to be able to go about collecting these things without getting ambushed and brainwashed, she's going to need it too. Fortunately, the southern continent is long since abandoned. The Lightning Queen realized that the key was destroyed and went, well, that means nobody else can get it either. And bailed. She's like, I can't get it, they can't get it, nobody can get it. It's clearly impossible. They've doomed themselves. And before you ask, it's like, well, why didn't she try and brainwash Zoge? I told you before, he's got a chip. He had a chip in his brain that prevented him from getting brainwashed. He did not offer that to Ember, I don't think. Let's leave that up to interpretation, whether she already has one or not, and she's just getting this for Aurea, or if she's also needing one for herself. Either that or she just doesn't trust the technology will hold up once the Lightning Queen has adapted. Either way, she goes to collect that. She goes to get the Circlet of Choice. And the defense mechanism in this particular case is an odd one. Because what it does is, in a sense, what it says on the tin. When she enters, she is taken to a version of the Crimson Keep where she had always been a student there. Where Zoge's arm was never chopped off. In fact, it's entirely healthy. He has the black armor, just in case. He's a happy-go-lucky guy. And he's laughing, and he's still smart, he's still clever, he's still a sociopath, but like he's happy. He's not damaged like he was. Cain, complete, whole, actually frickin' happy, and not driven mad by survivor's guilt and all kinds of other bullcrap. Olive, not a murderous mafia boss criminal. Even Tannen is still alive. And she's friends with all of them, which is secretly, in her heart of hearts, she hadn't even thought about it until this moment, but she had been wondering, what if she had gotten a chance to meet them before the Lightning Queen brainwashed her with some nonsense? Would seeing beastkin and human alike hanging out, and people from all walks of life being best friends despite their various personalities and quirks, would her having a family matter? In fact, it's here that it's revealed that Ember didn't have a family. Her family died in burnt sienna, and she was shipped off to an orphanage on the eastern continent. She was shipped off to an orphanage there and quickly snatched up by the Scarlet Order. And she was told quickly that it's like, look, you're from an entirely different culture. The Eastern Continent's a little bit different. We do things a little bit different up here. So you're gonna have to find your place on your own. But we're going to, you're one of us. We're just not really going to pay you too much mind, because there's so many orphans around here, so many people who have been a part of, who survived, village massacres, that it's not really special. You're just another one of us. You're better than everybody else, but not really better than us. And between the classism that they had there and her uncovering all the lost records from the Lotus War that the public didn't get to know, just the horrible things Lord Lotus had been doing that just frickin' didn't... The public doesn't need to know that. The public does not need to know just how horrible his war crimes were. We're just gonna portray him as a comic book villain and leave it at that. We're just gonna make him generically evil, the embodiment of generic evil, and we're not gonna get into his weird quotes or his ideology. And so she's honestly wondering, like, if she had come here instead, if she had ended up meeting these kids, how would her life have been different, And she recognizes as she's going through it that this is the day before the attack happened. And she doesn't want the next day to come. She wants to stay in this exact moment, and yet Zoge is the one encouraging her. It's like, you can't stay here forever. You know that, right? She's like, I don't know. Why can't I? Why can't I? Time isn't moving. And he goes, it's not moving in here. But it's moving out there. Outside of this vault, you can eat and drink and stay here forever, sure. But deep down you know that the longer you stay here, the worse things get out there. And the more you just spit in the face of my sacrifice. And she snaps at him and goes, your sacrifice. Yeah. You didn't have to die. You could have done this differently. Because you and I both know that wouldn't have worked. We give her too much time, she adapts. She would have figured out what we were up to if we took any longer than we did. She would have put all kinds of seeds of doubt, divided the people, and prevented the unity we needed for this. She goes, well, I could have found another way. But no, you couldn't. I was picking your brain daily for your best ideas. What we're doing is too damn important. You can stay here. Look after yourself. Because nobody else is. Promise you that. There is nobody out there looking out for your interests. And what I'm asking of you is to look out for everybody else's regardless. And I know it's not fair. And she gets very upset. Of course it's not fair. He goes, yeah. And you and I, of all people, know better than anybody that there isn't a single aspect of life that's been fair to us. Not a single aspect. But this is the first time that we have rigged the odds in our favor, where we have all the cards, and we get to do what really frickin' matters. And nobody, if we continue down this road, there isn't a damn thing anybody can do to stop it. Not at this point. The odds are in our favor. We have a 100% chance to succeed. All you've got to do is keep moving forward. Or you can choose to stay here. It's up to you. Because you can't move forward if you're looking to the past, asking yourself what could have been. One does not control their future by trying to change the past. And she hates it. And she watches him leave. And she watches him walk towards the tower, which inevitably explodes. And as she's crying on the bottom of the floor in the vault, she realizes that she's in the treasure chamber, the circlet right there with her. She collects it and quickly makes her way back to the ship and leaves before anybody else can figure out what just happened. Which is beneficial to her because there was reports going out right about the time she woke up crying that there had been a small earthquake in the area. And by the time it got to Perry, he went, oh, somebody got into the vault. Okay. And by the time he arrived, she had been gone for quite some time. But if she had lingered very much longer, it would have been a problem. So that's one thing that ended up happening. In Ember's next journey, she already knew that she had the Staff of Creation. And she had gained the Circlet of Choice. And now she had to figure out what the movements of the enemy were. Because she knew they were going to try and get the Lightning Queen. She wanted to know how much time they had before she was uncovered and what their plans in general for her were. And she knew it's like, okay, I have 2 artifacts with me. They can't find me. I've made that incredibly clear, and I'm not taking these things off this ship. This ship is a vault in its own right. So we've got 2 of the 4 artifacts here. And Aurea has the Light of Knowledge. And if I give her the artifacts now, then it's going to be bad. Because we need to make sure that she's stable. And so, Ember ends up using the rest of this time to investigate. About 2 months after she gets the circlet, she sees Aurea has been traveling with and training under Amaranth. And, of course, Aurea's been... she wields but a single longsword with a nice basket hilt. And she wears her lovely coat. And she's literally been learning swordsmanship from Amaranth, who has been showing her the ropes pretty consistently. Like, she's been using her ability to slow her perception of time to give little corrections that Amaranth just immediately snaps to understanding because she's an automaton. But really, Amaranth's been spending this time, like, talking with Aurea, processing her feelings. Kane's gone missing, and she doesn't know where he is. And Aurea is not only picking her brain as to how she's currently feeling, but why she continues to, bear up under all this, and continuing to, hold her chin high. And Amaranth just goes, it's like, because I've started walking this road. And I did this for the sake of other people, and therefore I have an obligation to see it through for their sakes. And to an extent for my own. Because this is the road I have chosen, and I genuinely believe in the good it will bring. And then, of course, Aurea digs too personal, gets awkward, etc., etc. Even digs into her love life, and that's a whole thing. But Ember discreetly gives the circlet to Aurea, who absolutely loves this, because she recognizes it immediately, and puts it on. And when Ash goes, oh, yeah, no, I I've had this packed away for a while, but I just, it's a fashion choice. I didn't think it was fitting yet, but it helps keep the hair out of my eyes while we're training, right? She's very discreet about it, and Amaranth doesn't think too hard about it, because circlets are an odd style choice, but not, they're functional enough. It's not too weird. And Amaranth is aware there's 4 artifacts, but she doesn't know what any of them look like. She's never seen the reference material. She wasn't handed the manual. So Amber, after 2 months of getting the circlet, leaves that for Aurea, in hopes that Aurea can keep it discreet, so news doesn't get around that she's got the circlet, because that would paint a bullseye on her too. But it's nothing, right? It's something very small. During this time, Perry's been leading the terrorist group on active attacks on various continents to help disguise his method of getting the Lightning Queen out, because he's not going to sift through all that rubble to get to the elevator where she fell, and he's pretty sure that the Riga's government, once they get to the actual elevator shaft, is probably just going to pour cement in it or something in hopes of taking longer to get her out. So Zoge's like, no, we gotta go in all sneaky. And so he finds an underwater cave network, looks for an air pocket, and starts digging towards it. In the air pocket. He's like, we're gonna start digging in the air pocket under the water. And we're gonna dig up towards, based on the size and shape of the building, roughly where she was. And they've formed a nice underground network of tunnels under the sea, specifically in this air pocket, and just like a network of tunnels. Whole bunch of tunnels. And they've been using this as kind of an underground base under the city of Regis while they try and dig her out. And they have to use supports on a regular basis, because if they don't, there's going to be a cave-in, because there's so much rock on top of them. So they're digging very carefully. They don't want to cave in. But they're building right underneath the city, which Perry and his men is like, yes, we shall undermine the very foundations of their world. And the only other thing to report is over the course of that year, Cain is forced to fight for survival in this arena filled with monsters that keeps getting refilled because they keep collecting new monsters, and he has no means of getting out. He hasn't been fed. There's no good sources of water. There's not really a great way to survive, but he's been finding ways to, not only by using his paradox gene to force his body to renew itself as like a desperation move, but he's even begun consuming the monster meat and drinking monster blood for whatever hydration it's worth. When he sleeps, he does so very under a pile of corpses, because if he doesn't, he'll get attacked in the open in the dead of his sleep by the monster, so he has to bury himself in a pile of dead bodies just to get any kind of rest. And by the time Volume 4 begins, Cain is heavily scarred and very disconnected. This is almost worse than solitary confinement. And he's even, out of desperation, when one of his arms was removed and he wasn't healing fast enough, because if he doesn't heal fast enough, that arm does not come back, it just closes up. He chopped off a monster arm and put it on his arm. He's done the same thing with the other arm. And he's done the same thing with his legs. And so all of his 4 primary limbs have been actively replaced with monster limbs. Not just once, but on multiple occasions. Dude is not just psychologically more monster than man, he is physically more monster than man. But because he's been doing this for his will to survive, and with his paradox gene burning to, attach them, as much as he's becoming psychotic, there's a stability to it. There's this, he's like, Cain is no more. That's still my name. I know my name. In fact, it's the only thing I have, really, anymore. But you know who Cain is? Cain is a guy that Death follows around like an old friend. Death is my friend. I'm looking for him. Have you seen him? If not, I'll bring you to him. Like, he just loves the thrill of fighting. And it's how he's disconnected from his survivor's guilt, is he just embraces the fight. If he lives in the moment of the fight, he doesn't have to think about the people that are dead because of him, the consequences of his actions, the repercussions of saving Zoge and the 10,000 people who have died because of it, all those lives that are dead because of a direct result of him being a good guy. If he's not a good guy and all he does is fight and kill, he doesn't have to think about that, right? He can just turn off his brain. It's so much more convenient to just be a killing machine. And then one day, one of his friends will just kill him and make him pay for his sins. It all works. Just be a monster until someone kills you, and then you're free of guilt because you've died punished for your sins. And as long as you die getting punished for your sins, it doesn't matter how many you rack up. Dude has gone completely unhinged. And it's the lowest point for Cain. By the time that Viola the Lightning Queen has been recovered and given a new host, he's just entirely different. And she wants to make him suffer, but he already has. If anything, she's rather impressed. The man who refuses to die. Because she knows that he's survived dying once before, and that he just keeps clinging to life, thrown into a pit, desperate for survival. And when does he come out? He comes out a loyal, murderous dog. What a lovely present for her return. Amaranth, during this time, knowing that the Western continent is not going to be able to hold forever, she goes, uses this tour, along with various contacts that she and Opal have known through their contacts of nobility. She's going on a grand tour trying to gussy up support for this. So, Northern Continent, you don't got to worry about Regis, you don't have to worry about Valiants, they're already all in. So she goes to the Southern Continent and talks with her father, who communicates that while House Salvia is willing to weigh in, it's going to take time to convince the other noble houses of the Southern Continent. And she's like, maybe I can talk to them, or he goes, no. I can handle that. You stay sharp, you stay alert to any agents of her that are in the way, and you keep going around telling them what's going on, and you just continue to fight to protect the innocent while you're doing it. Because you are the Lady of Winter Blossoms, as far as anybody's concerned, titles-wise. But functionally, your job right now is not to sit here and bicker with petty politics. My skills of the blade do not dull by interacting with this, and I have your brothers to help me navigate. And your mother, of course, is always one of the greatest, peace brokers we have. So we've got it on lockdown here. I'm going to need you to talk with the Scarlet Order and get whatever heroes you can from there involved. And if at all possible, you're going to need to go to the Eastern Continent. And eventually you're going to have to broker peace with the clans that exiled us and find a way to get their support despite being the granddaughter of Lord Lotus. Because without their support, it's going to be very difficult. And she doesn't like that. She's been putting off going to the Eastern Continent specifically for that. She's even gone to the Western Continent and tried rallying mercenaries before she thought of going to the Eastern Continent. Not because she's embarrassed, but because the last time she was there, they made their stance incredibly clear. That she's not to be even given the time of day by the clans. She's just not. She is the daughter of the traitor, and therefore cannot be trusted. So she goes around looking for the other swords. She knows her father has the Sword of the South. Because again, he went and took that from. And of course, she's currently wielding she's wielding the Blade of the South. Her father's wielding the Blade of the East. And of course, there's Nirvana, the Blade of the West, but she hasn't been able to find the Blade of the North yet. And there's a few explanations I've come up with for that, but I have intentionally made the Blade of the North a very sequestered person. And Amaranth doesn't meet them. It doesn't even meet them. Same way that we don't meet the original Blade of the East, we're not going to meet, and the same way we don't meet Rubis, actually. We do not meet Topi, which is Topaz. We don't meet Topi. But Topi is the Northern Blade. And what she ends up doing instead is she ends up tracking down the family that was related to Topi, that was connected to Topi. And she collects the blade from them after Opal lets her know. But that's after she's done a few grand tours, because Opal was trying to help her find the Blade of the North, and they were not doing well. They were not doing well in searching for Topi. But again, we have all of that going on. That's just, again, not much, just a lot of running around and talking to people. Olive, during this time, is continuing her anti-terrorist activities and actively interfering with anything that Perry tries to make happen outside of his little underground cave. Like, they, between Sable's intel and her own, and now that she's organized the main branch of the political movement, they know precisely which registered members have gone missing, and as soon as they get any reports of any of them, Olive is already sending agents to go take care of it, or, Sable is interfering and taking them captive and turning them in. After the assassination attempt, there is no safe place for these people. And this brings us around to Blaze goes to the western fortress just because she wants to make sure that that's secure and she wants to provide help there. This is where White comes back in too, because White's been wandering the wastes fighting these monsters, but not really overly caring about it. And really just taking his time, studying himself, studying the blade, getting to know it. And it's been, 2 years? No, 4. 3 or 4 years since the fall of the Crimson Keep. And he has been in the wilderness the whole time, just training himself, refining his skills. What we run into is at the beginning of Volume 4, Amaranth eventually returns to the Eastern Continent. And she is trying to broker peace with the clans. And they're like, we're not going to do this. And then Rosa shows up, and they're like, you help the traitor, we're not going to listen. She goes, no. Here. And she whips out Nirvana. She goes, any of you that wish to challenge my granddaughter, you may wield this wondrous blade from my pupil, and you may face her in battle. And they go, well, she has multiple legendary blades. They go, how is this fair? I go, no. She will wield her own blade. I will hold on to those other blades, or one of you can, doesn't matter. The other 4 blades will be held. You can wield the Blade of the West against my daughter's sword. And if she bests you, then you have to accept. You never have to return Winsalvia to a place of honor. But you must respect my daughter of the sword. Not even like a granddaughter, but she's talking about her as in a part of her clan, of the warrior swordswomen. She's like, you have to respect my daughter of the blade. And they're like, fine. And they send one of their best. And unlike Mr. I'm going to wield the blade of the South like it's frickin' nothing, this person is very skilled. I don't think I ever named them. I don't intend to, frankly, because they're only here for this one duel. And they show up again later, but they're here for one duel. If I ever wrote the book, I'd name them, but they're not important in the current version of the story. And they've put her against it. And what they aren't telling her is that they're not judging her based on whether she wins or loses. They're judging her based on the brutality with which she fights. They don't want to they don't want to put their faith in somebody who's going to turn out to be as heartless and violent a monster as Lord Lotus himself. And so the swordsman in question has been told to, drop your guard in select ways, at certain timing. Give her blows that could only be lethal, and see what she does with them. And they actively see her get annoyed each time it happens. And when they ask, they can tell she has mounting frustration. They're like, Lady Salvia, what appears to be the problem? You seem to be growing quite upset. Are you agitated by something? She goes, I don't appreciate the deception. And they're all dead silent for a minute. And she clarifies, the match has been going smoothly, but I know the difference between somebody making a mistake and somebody baiting me. And it's honestly it's honestly insulting. It's not even hurtful, it's downright insulting to her. She's like, do you think I wouldn't recognize it? Do you think I don't know the difference? You're trying to see if I'll kill him. Well, I won't. Because I have a bigger foe. I have bigger targets to deal with, and I don't have time for this petty bickering and sniping. If you want this to be an honorable and fair duel, you'll give me 100% without these stupid mind games. She actively chastises them for playing kids' games when the fate of the world is at stake. And they are... The heads of the clans try and bluster, but the guy who's been leading them, the head of all clans, applauds her. He goes, you are correct. We were testing you to see if you had the same vicious, destructive instinct as your grandfather. And you're also correct. Now isn't the time for hesitation or doubt. The fact that you had the wherewithal and spine to call out our hesitation is proof, if nothing else, that your cause is noble. So we swear ourselves not to you, but to your cause. We will begin arrangements immediately to send support to the Western Fortress. You have our word. In fact, I have a contact over there that I'd love to put you in touch with. He's one of your former colleagues, actually. He's not one that we don't have often contact with him, but some of my agents have been over there before, just doing rites of passage, finding worthy beasts to bring back as proof of their mettle, and they've discovered a man who wanders the wastes, a man who is known as a living sandstorm. He refers to himself as White, and she's just like, oh, it's been a while since I even heard that name. I hadn't even thought twice about it. It's just been too long. And so she ends up going to the Western continent and meeting up with White. And of course, Aurea is watching with bated breath through this whole thing. She's super excited. She's super happy for her. She's playing the perfect sidekick, right? Just like, oh wow, I'm really proud of you. You did your dad proud. You've earned your way back into the clan. And you called them out on this. It's like, isn't it weird to they banished your family. Isn't it weird to treat them like this? She goes, that was ages ago. It wasn't me, and there's bigger issues. That's even what they need to know. I don't care if they banished my father, and I don't care what the right and wrong of ancient history was. What I care about is right now. I need all the help I can get, and I know that they claim to be honorable, good people. And so, even if they weren't, but they were willing to help protect honorable, good people, I would have to try and broker something, because all life is precious and I'm not about to throw it away. And she even brings up, it's like, if it weren't for what my dad did, and the trials born of that, we wouldn't be where we are. If he had never been driven south, I never would have gotten kidnapped. I never would have gone through all this. I never would have faced my hemophobia like anything like this, I never would have had the chance. And it's really that kind of thing where it's like Aurea is continuously seeing how Amaranth has grown so much stronger than historic records would prove her to be. She's even watching her come face to face with blood in some of these encounters and muscle through. And she's even asking, it's like, aren't you afraid of that? It's like, yes, but I can't let my fear stop me from doing the right thing. And Aurea eventually ends up spending some time with Olive, which you can argue whether that's a good or a bad thing, because she doesn't have to spend much time with Olive. Her time with Olive is pretty much just for her resources and her reach. But even as she's spending, it's like, how can you do all these horrible things and still consider yourself the good guy? And it's like, well, that's obvious. It's because the good clean option is not always available. You need somebody who's willing to get in there, get their hands dirty, and face the darker side of reality. It's not always going to be gumdrops and rainbows. And if you want to do the right thing, you're going to have to accept a lot of personal cost, even if it's your own reputation, your own good name. You have to be willing to get your hands in there and get the good deed done. Because if you don't, innocent people can suffer and die. So we are brutal, we are efficient, we are surgical here. And Aurea takes that in mind too. Just the right amount of force at just the right amount of time. She even ends up, in one of her conversations with Ember via the communications channel she has, asking her about her opinion on this. And Ember has to wax philosophical to kind of get her way around it. Because she doesn't want to answer that directly, because that makes her feel all ooky and guilty. But she says it's like there is a time to put pragmatism and efficiency ahead of your personal feelings. But you're not going to be a celebrated hero and a role model and somebody to look up to if you're constantly doing that. You're accomplishing good, sure, but you're not inspiring people. Those aren't the stories that get passed down. If you want your name to last, you need to give people something to guide themselves by, an ideal to aspire to. Historically, that's how it works. Even if you have flaws in your story and you do bad things in your story, if you do your best to represent an ideal that everybody wishes they could be, then you will be remembered, and the good you did will be remembered, and the things you drew attention to will be remembered. And so Aurea starts to understand. She starts to recognize a few patterns in all this stuff. And Amaranth is continuing to muster support. And she's so far doing it on good faith. She's gotten vague promises, but nothing specific, right? But she's visited every continent. She's talked to everybody she could think to talk to. And while they don't overly seem dedicated, they also aren't seeming to be actively against her. And so she makes her way to the Western Fortress because she's done the most she can. And it's a whole series of events that go through all this. I feel like Volume 4 is probably the... I could probably make Volume 4 into a Volume 3 and be fine. But it's more a lot of character drama. It's like if I had to summarize Mass Effect 3. Mass Effect 3 is a bunch of payoff for a bunch of stuff, and you can do plot point by plot point, but it's still a basic summary if you're not actually writing it. It's just a bunch of conflicts and a bunch of character moments and a bunch of exposition, all feeding off of what's happened up to this point. And then we get to Amaranth's arrival on the Western continent. And she meets up with White, who has been shielded from most of this. He has no idea what happened in the Northern continent, so he's asking all kinds of questions. Like, so what happened to Zoge? Like, how's he doing? Like, he buried the big bad under a mountain of rubble and died after killing the queen. He goes, wow, I I mean, I figured him for a schemer, but regicide. I mean, yeah. It turns out, did you know he was the only child of the firstborn queen of the land? He goes, oh, frick, royalty. No wonder he was such a jackass. She laughs, but she's like, yeah, I guess so. That makes sense. He's like, oh yeah, where's Cain? He's like, yeah, I haven't seen Cain in almost a year. He disappeared, and I'm worried about him, and I don't know what else to do. Like, I haven't seen him. I don't know where he's gone. Nobody's seen hide nor hair of him. Nobody knows what happened. And he's like, well, I know Cain. So, since apparently he survived, which pissed me the frick off, I'm gonna have to punch him in the face for tannin. And she's like, isn't that like 3 years ago? Like, yeah, 3 years. 3 years without getting punched in the face seems like a crime to me. But anyway, since he somehow survived the fall of the Crimson Keep, I'm gonna have to punch him. But he'll show up. He's never failed us before. He's been there for all this. He's gonna show up. So we just gotta keep the seat warm for him until he shows up the last second like the dramatic motherfricker he is. And he's like, how's the rest of my squad? It's like, Blaze is already at the Blaze is already at the Western Fortress. Hell yeah, that's going to be a party when we get there. It's like, are you okay? Yeah, it's fine. And Opal? Opal's back on the Northern Continent dealing with politics and corporations and economic influx and all that jazz. So, sounds boring. It's very boring. Very boring. I think she hates it, but I don't think she's going to outright say it. And you go, yeah, that seems about right. Hey, and he talks to her. He's like, hey, how are you? And she's like, oh, I'm doing fine. It's like, I've never seen you before. She's like, oh, I was just one of the students. He goes, oh, okay. I mean, I don't remember you. I'm pretty good with faces, but she goes, oh, well, the coat's new. The coat's something I put on, when I went to the north, and I just, it's like, yeah, I mean, we all changed our style after the fall of the Crimson Keep. She's like, yeah, you get it? Yeah, he's like, yeah, I do, I get it. And it's clear White's not really buying it. White knows she's hiding something, but it's a million other things on his plate, and he can at least tell she's a good person. She may not be honest with him, but she's a good person. And White's lowered his standards quite immensely post-Cain. It's like, I don't have to like somebody, or agree with them, or trust them, to believe that they're good and they're going to do good things. Like, I wouldn't call him jaded, I would call him... I don't know what I'd call him. It's not jaded, it's not even tired. Laissez-faire is the closest thing I can think of, even that's not quite right. But he's very much the kind of, like, he's weathered. That's probably the better way to do it, which I was avoiding because of his wind powers, but yes, he's weathered. He's a very weathered warrior now. Because life is hard on the Western Continent. There's hardly any resources at all there. It's, like, literally, like, it is the Old West in every way. It's just like, yeah, it's fantasy, and there's various people from various cultures all interacting and overlapping, but the general rules are the same as they were in the Old West. If you had a big enough posse, you can get away with pretty much anything you want, but you also have to be aware that one day somebody somewhere is going to come along with either a bigger posse or a skilled enough fighter to just destroy your whole everything. And then you're either in a pine box or you're in a jail cell waiting for a pine box. Like, so you either work with the community or you die. And if your community is forcefully changed into a different community, you're going to die. And that's why the Western Fortress being as strong as it is such an impressive feat, because the Scarlet Order has made... The Scarlet Order has deflected so many bandit raids on the Western Fortress, because there is so many artifacts or various bits of technology that have all been stored there, or relics from ancient heroes, and all of it's been used to kind of, work out what happens next for people in general. And since it's being used to work out what's happening in general, for, storing things, various things like that, Bandits have tried raiding it, and they've always failed. Just always. Every time. Failure. And that's why the Western Fortress is held. Even with the increasingly heavy onslaught of monsters, it's just continued to be that. So as Amaranth is making her way there, we cut back to Viola, the Lightning Queen, having a new vessel, having been dragged there against their will and then forced to the lightning runes of the over-a-year-old rotting corpse. The new host is, as always, nothing to the Lightning Queen. She takes over it pretty much effortlessly and just puppeteers it like nothing. But she sees Kane and goes, again, like I said, this, well-trained dog just waiting to be used. And she thinks about it, she goes, we only have one artifact left. And I have an idea. So, Perry, I need you to go to the Eastern Continent for me and gather some bodies. And so what she does is what she did before when Violetta made Viola before she got damaged was a taboo and a travesty and involved a lot of killing people. This is an even greater taboo with even less restraint. Because what she does is she sends Perry and the swordsman to go and collect bodies of those who died in the Lotus War. Specifically, she wants Lord Lotus, who she had already infected with some monster parts, some of them. But she wants to have more capable warriors that fell at the hands of Lord Lotus, and she wants them to be brought to her. And it's like, those are very ancient bodies, and she's like, I don't care. Bring them to me. And the reason she chose the Eastern Continent in particular is not just because of Lord Lotus being there, which is already a red flag, but because they have very specific traditions on how to preserve a body there. Namely, they will, and this is no joke, gold is so prevalent on the Eastern Continent that it is used in funeral rites to preserve the body. And it's literally done this way so that way it can, since gold doesn't oxidize, and you can make an airtight seal by simply dumping the body into the gold and pulling it back out. You can actively encase somebody in a dead body in gold, and what they use as kind of a seal is they'll use wax as an initial layer. So you have these it's this combination of things, like a high temperature resistance wax with a layer of gold over the top of it to preserve their bodies, to prevent it from decay. And she knew this. She's known this for quite a while. But she really didn't care. Didn't seem important. But now that she's seeing this guy who survived by grafting monster parts to himself, discovering it all on his own, and she already knows how to implant living people with monster parts, what if she could do something with this? The guy's using dead monster parts to fuse it on himself. What if she could weaponize that? And so, having thrown multiple people to Monster Kane until he's tired and she can collect him peacefully, so lots of dead bodies of people, she uses him and his paradox gene to graft monster parts onto these well-preserved corpses and move them. And you may say, it's like, well, why, if this is gold, then it's clearly worth a lot. Why wasn't it used to decorate things and all things like that? It's like, because it was saved for funeral rites. And it was common enough where it was about as useful as frickin' zirconium. So it's as useful as it is in various bits of technology and such in the Eastern Kingdom. It's like, dude, you use that on dead bodies. Why would you want to deny dead bodies this wonderful material that will preserve the honored dead, just so you can build a little gadget that goes wee 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 it drives around in circles. No, that's dumb. You're dumb. And of course, they're not going to tell other nations about them using it in funerals, because it's like, dude, we're not inviting you to our funerals. This is for the honored dead, and you're not one of us, so stay out. So they didn't know how much gold that exists on the Eastern continent, because culturally it's only used for the dead, and they don't let outsiders into the funeral rites. They just don't. So but she knew. She knew because she had been working with Lord Lotus. So that's what's going on with that. So she'd not plan this in advance. She would lie if you confronted her and say, "Oh yeah, no, I definitely planned this in advance," but she didn't. She knows she didn't. I know she didn't. Everybody knows she didn't plan this in advance. And so she's now using Kane's paradox gene, along with monster parts, to animate not just a normal monster army, but to give new life to various capable warriors. And in the meantime, brainwash them to listen to her, give them these monster parts for additional advantage. Because, yeah, throwing monsters at the Western Fortress, that's easy. They're naturally occurring. It's fine. We can empty out the wilderness. But if we really want to do good, we have to take countless dead warriors and give them new life and modern equipment and teach them how to use it, and train them in the tactics they need, and just make an army of highly effective dead guys. Because they're already dead. Stab Lord Lotus through the heart now, and it won't make a lick of difference. Because he's already dead. Like, you can animate the body, he gonna keep moving. At least until that spark of life that he's been given burns out. But she doesn't need it to burn long. She just needs it to burn long enough to get her inside the fortress. That's all she needs. Either enough raw force to break the defenses, or enough of a distraction where nobody will notice when she slips in. Doesn't matter which one she uses. What matters is that she's going to do that, right? And, So she's doing that, and then she looks over some of the corpses that were discovered in the digging out the things. And go, what's these? And go, oh, I hadn't noticed that before, but it seems like this thing's made of metal, and it looks like a person. She goes, find somebody to fix this for me. Find somebody to get this operational. I got an idea, because she's like, I have an idea, but I don't need you to think too hard on it. Just, yeah, I got an idea. Because she had seen these people, and now they're made of metal, which makes her think of something, right? She's like, maybe I can use this to my advantage, who knows? And so while she's making her undead army and a new, more durable vessel for herself, with a cunning plan in mind, of course, you have Amaranth getting to the Western Fortress only to realize that the monster attacks are now so intense that she can't leave. She is stuck inside the Western Fortress now, and Blaze tried to warn her before they arrived that it's been getting too intense lately. It's been wearing them out, and it's been hard. And White's like, okay, I've been in these wilderness for many years, and I can see this is why everything was starting to get quiet out there. But I've fought this concentration before. And I've had to run away from it before, but we've got all of us now, right? It should be fine. And Rosa shows up, and Amaranth's like, oh, you're gonna help us out. And Rosa's like, I am. But I found something. Opal found something in Zoge's collection. And Olive and I decided that you could use it. It would benefit you immensely. And so I've been taking these last few months to have it properly tailored, properly modified, and made just for you. And what she pulls out is an elegant long coat covered in purple silk with gold trim and gold piping and that kite shield symbol of all of her friends' symbols right on the back of it. The shoulders are armored with black bronze, with gold trim, well, pseudo gold, fake gold trim, but gold leaf trim. Actually, knowing what I just said earlier about the Eastern Continent, it's real gold, probably. I just didn't think real gold would be useful in an actual military sense, so that's why it would be something just gold colored, but it's black and gold plating on the shoulders. And even van braces on each of her arms that are made of the same black and gold armored material. All of it splint mail style, all of it light as a feather. And she goes, this is your new attire. You are officially a member of my clan. You are officially a swordswoman. You are officially a swordswoman of my clan. Swordswoman of House Salvia. And Amaranth has a total meltdown in a good way. Just a total emotional breakdown of oh my god, my grandmother frickin' acknowledges and respects me as a frickin' swordswoman. This is the coolest thing ever. She doesn't squee, but she has that quiet meltdown of crying and this is the most important day of my life. Which is kind of sad because they're stuck in the Western Fortress, and Rose is I could get out if I wanted to, but I wouldn't be able to get any of you out with me. The actual ongoing onslaught is too intense. Even with the automated defenses, even with the rotating guards, there's only a gap for me to get out on my own, and that would still be an uphill struggle. It's it got worse recently. And it did. Because she needed to make sure whoever was there couldn't get word out. She needed to make sure that they also felt like they were making forward progress. They were going to eat out the wilderness. Eventually, there wasn't going to be anything left, right? Nothing left for her to work with. Olive, not being able to get in contact with her friends, but tracking down every movement that Perry makes, realizes that Perry goes to the Eastern Continent, which is weird. There shouldn't be anything there for him to get. So she watches him. She sees where he went, and she sees people coming and going, but she doesn't see anybody, doing anything. They're in there, they're chilling out, but they're not doing anything. They're just kind of in there. She's that's weird. You're in the mountain of the dead, and you're not going anywhere. Just sitting inside a tomb full of dead people on the opposite side of the world, the only place you have left to go. And so Olive makes a point of going in there after a while. She wants to figure out what her brother is up to. And short version of that exchange is that she goes in there. Perry tries pulling the I'm the god of fear and death shtick on her. And he explains how his goddess has returned, and he's pleasing his goddess with offerings from the dead. And all the usual shenanigans. And he's trying to use his fear powers on her. And he's that silly mask technique where you're breaking eye contact. You think that's going to help. And as to make a frickin' point to him, she takes off the mask. She looks him directly in his eyes, and oh yes, what she sees scares her. Scares the frick out of her. It's the scariest damn thing she knows. But all it does is piss her off. Oh, she is scared. You can see the fear. You can see her hands quaking and shaking. You can see her fricking becoming more and more distraught. But the anger is what outpaces it. The anger is what keeps winning out. And when he's sitting here going I don't understand. I should be able to instill fear in you. You should be a paralyzed, scared little girl. And she states dead on, coldest possible tone. It's that's what I'm seeing. The scared little girl that always depended on her big brother to make her feel better. That no matter how hard I try, I will never stop being scared. Not scared of you, but scared of what happens if I do nothing. Scared of being nothing. And I can't let that happen. We have come too far, we have done too much for this to all mean nothing. And she's like absolutely going off on him. And by the time she pins him down, because he's now scared of her, she puts her mask on his face and goes full mafia boss of like, this has been a long time coming. The first time I beat you, I took your eyes. If I'm going to be taking more than that, I thought that would make a point, that you would know not to cross me again. But apparently it didn't. So now I'm going to have to keep removing bits until I'm sure you've learned your lesson, and that you won't be doing this again. And of course it smash cuts. Like, she's going to go full mafia boss. This is going to be like, I'm pulling off your fingernails and then your fingers knuckle by knuckle. She's going full mafia on him. But it's really one of those, like, Olive at the beginning was snarky and sneaky and around it, but Olive at the end of the series is freaking terrifying. Like, if she was put into any kind of other fiction, she would be one of the pirates, bandits / bad guys, because she's fully off the deep end. Sure, it's sympathetic motivations. You understand where she's coming from. But my god, do the ends not justify the means. Just frick that, you know? And she's not going to, like, as she gets older, she's going to continue down this course. It's a sunk cost fallacy. She is too deep to change how she's doing it, and if it pays off even a little, that's all she needs, right? That's proof that it's working, and she needs to keep doubling down. Never apologize. Not once, not ever. And so that's who she is as a person. She's like, frick that. I've come too far. We cannot go back. There is no going back. Biggest thing she's scared of is that one day she'll end up where she started and she's like, nope, we have gone too far. There is no going back. This is not, I would sooner die than go back to that. And it's to some it would seem like a cop-out, right? But the implication is that she is freaking like, she's been propelled by her fear of this the whole time. She went looking for her brother as the innocent girl who depends on her older brother to look after her and all that stuff. And it bit her in the ass and cost hundreds of thousands of people their life. Like, at that event, hundreds of thousands would be about right. But the Fall of the Crimson Keep is about hundreds of thousands. And in her mind, it was her fault because she could have done more if she hadn't just been this, like, but he my brother, I'm going to save him. If she had just been ruthless from the start, she could have killed him off, cut them off at the knees, and stopped them from ever getting this crap done. Like, if she had only been like Zoge, and it's just like... And by the way, I love the fact that even though he went by Avario, he was clearly, shifting personality, and he was definitely pushing the whole, like, I'm going to embrace my true lineage crap. All of his friends... Even his pseudo-friends like White all still know him as Zoge. They're not going to change. One could argue they're dead naming him, but Zoge really wouldn't care. He wouldn't. Whether he's Avario or Zoge, he doesn't actually care which name you use. He's on a whole different level. He's 5D chessing your checkerboard. Like, he's not interested in something as pitiful as a name. Impact is far more meaningful. But yeah, so Amaranth is locked in the Western Fortress, finally gets her new gear, her final gear, her heroic form. And she is finally given the Blade of the West. So she has all 4 of the different swords, but she also knows she doesn't need them, because she has bested all but the Blade of the North in like personal combat. And you may say, like, where'd she get doesn't her dad have the Blade of the East? We're getting to that, but by the time the end of the story, she has all 4 blades. And it's not the way you think. But anyway, so they're holding off these assaults, and eventually Eventually, especially after she realizes that Perry's not coming back, Viola realizes Perry's not going to be sending her more bodies, and he's not coming back, which is fine. She decides she's going to do some psychological warfare to prepare them, right? So she gets Kane to go visit the Western Fortress, to infiltrate, and to kill as many people as he can before he dies, so he can die an honorable death at the hands of true heroes. And he's all for this, because he's completely unhinged at this point. And he goes and he fights them. And the weird part is, first person he approaches is Blaze, who doesn't know how to react to her cousin being a monster now. That's something that she just can't, because it's still his face, it's still his glowing eyes, but he has got like sharper teeth and all of his limbs are monsterish, but his torso and his head are all still normal. But he's covered in scars, and he's got this weird desire to kill in his eyes. And she's all for kicking his ass again. She always knew he was going to betray us eventually, right? And the two get into an out-and-out fist fight, because Kane is not using swords at this point. He is just using his monster claws, his monster feet, and beating the frick out of you the old-fashioned way. And he loves it. He loves the visceral feeling of ripping you apart with his claws. And Blaze loves the visceral feeling of her fist making impact with your face and your rib cage and your limbs. And the two get into a really, it's not as environmentally destructive, because Scarlet Order builds their place a little bit, stronger. But also, it's not as environmentally destructive because his paradox gene is being used to keep himself, he can hardly use it, because it's being used just to, combat the infection of the monster DNA as best it can. And she's not using hers because he's a monster, sure, but he's still her cousin, and she wants to kind of make this last, because it's always fun to fight him. And when she realizes he's not using his, she figures she won't use hers. And she beats him to a stalemate before going, it's like, normally I love fighting you, but this is just sad. And he pauses. And his bloodthirst is... you ever see a dog where you say something, they tilt their head? He does that. And she goes, no, don't get me wrong, you're fighting strong, you're a good fighter. But there's something wrong about this. He goes, I get it, I'm not supposed to be a monster. That's why you need to slay me, save me from myself. She goes, no. It's such a... even that, right there. What was that? What? It's like, Kane doesn't talk like that. That's not who Kane is at all. Yeah, see? Clearly I'm a facsimile. No. You're you. I know you. You're definitely you. But I think you're lying to yourself. And I don't feel comfortable beating the crap out of you when you're just looking for an excuse. And he doesn't know how to react to that. He's never had an amazingly intense fist fight that everybody was enjoying get interrupted by whatever the frick this is. He has never once experienced this. And she tells us, can you just go? I don't want to do this anymore. It's like, but I'm here to kill you. And she's like, I know, and I get it, but I don't really think you are. And he pauses again. And she goes, no, you know me, I love me a good fight. I don't stop twice to think about them, but this is the first time I've honestly had to ask myself, does this person actually want me dead, or are they just trying to, get me to kill them? And Kane doesn't know how to respond to that at all. And she goes, yeah, I if you want to die, we can meet back up and do this again, but I think I want you to kind of explore that concept before you come back. And like a confused animal, he wanders out of the fortress and into the wilderness, unsure of how to process what just happened. And there's many reasons for that, but it's probably one of my favorite interactions. Literally it's knockdown, drag out, bare knuckle fighting. only to get interrupted by this, like, are you okay? It's like, what do you mean, am I okay? I'm here to kill you. It's like, no, I'm not sure you are. What? You're saying it, you're actively taking deathly swings, but I don't think you're into this. Do you want to, it's not fun if you're not into it. And he's like, what the frick is this? And it's because all of them are so immensely damaged from this stuff, and they have an inherent, like, understanding of Cain as a person. So it's hard for them to really motivate themselves to confront him. Blaze is the first, and probably the one most likely to be comfortable confronting him. And he leaves, and she takes her time processing what just happened before she goes up to the others and goes, so I just saw Cain. And they go, oh, Cain made his way in? That's great. We finally have somebody help. It's like, no. He was a monster man. And they go, oh, that's bad. She goes, no. It's worse than that. I think he's not okay. And he kind of just left to go figure himself out. And Amaranth's like, I don't know if I can... I want to go see him, but with the intensity of the attacks out there, I don't know if I can... And White's like, I could probably cut my way out. I'm going to figure out what's going on here. I'm going to go and break through. Because this sounds a lot like... It sounds a lot like what White would want to talk with Cain about. And so White, having known the desert for a while, known this area, waits for nightfall, where the monsters, despite being monsters, they're not going to be able to see him as well, right? Because he's done this enough times where he knows the proper time with the proper animals of the nature. So he knows how to avoid detection, at least somewhat. And while he's able to get out, via some really clever tactics, he still gets a little scuffed up. He'll be able to make it back in just fine, because the monsters are trying to fight their way in, so he just had to fight his way out. It's literally like a Venus flytrap effect. And so he gets out, and he goes and he finds Cain, who at this stage is looking... He's trying to psych himself back up, right? So he sees White and he goes, ah, White... I'm telling you now, my heart's finally in it. I'm going to kick your ass, and it's going to be great. And he's like, wow. Yeah, she's right. Are you okay? And he goes, not you two. Not you two. I'm not doing this. And he goes and, like, starts attacking him. And White's fighting him. And it's, again, very intense fight, very visceral, very, like, aggressive. But White's on the defensive. And Cain's getting pissed off. He's like, what is with you? Fight me. You can fight better than this. You fight me right now. And White's like, look, I came out here to check on you. If I wanted to kill you, I would have done it years ago. I would have tracked you down and killed you. In fact, I owe you one, because you killed Tannen. It's like, what do you mean? You're right. I did kill Tannen. With my neglect, my mindset, I could have done more. And he's like, yeah, exactly, you could have. Frick you. Frick you! And he goes to attack White again, and White's still not fighting him seriously. Until he gets one real clean shot right to Cain's face. Like, smack dab, like it's a bad hit. Like, it's a solid, clean hit for White, but Cain was completely caught off by this swordsman just punching him in the face as hard as he can. Dude really nailed him. And after he lands this, he goes, that was for Tannen. And as Cain's looking up from the ground, he's like, yes, you are strong. Take your victory and return, or I will slay all your friends. And he's like, yeah, Blaze is right. Are you okay? And he's like, what do you mean? You're actively asking me to kill you. But Cain, I know, even if he lost his frickin' mind, would be biting and clawing and scratching to not die. The dude had a lot of things wrong with him, but he had an energy about him. He wouldn't just roll over and accept death. This is not you, but I can tell you're still in there. or you would have just killed yourself the old-fashioned way. So why are you doing this? I'm trying to kill you. It's like, no. I don't think you are. And he's like, not this again. He goes, no, really. I want you to really look at yourself and ask yourself, why are you here? Because if you wanted to die, you would have gone somewhere else. And if you wanted to kill people, you would have gone to a place that's easier to find people that can't defend themselves to kill. So clearly, you are here looking for us and trying to kill us for some reason. And I don't think it's 'cause you hate us. And Light goes, look, I gotta get back to them. There's only so long they can do without me in rotation. And, well, you beat me up pretty good. I need to catch a nap before it's my turn. But you let me know how that goes. And Kane is now even more disillusioned, even more confused, because now two people who were rock stupid when he last knew them, who were just violent, aggressive, powerful people, have both basically told him, no, you know what, I'm not going to kill you. I know I normally love a good fight. I know I normally love kicking ass and killing people for looking at me funny. But I know you, and you're not okay, and I'm worried about you. It's like, I just tried to kill you. It's like, yeah, and you normally wouldn't. Are you okay? And even then, like, the part that gets me is I did want it to be an ongoing trend, and it's supposed to be half funny but half genuine. That all of them are, he's like, I'm trying to kill you. It's like, no, I don't think you are. It's like, the Kane I know wouldn't have failed to kill me at this point in time, so I'm pretty sure that you're not trying to kill me. He's like, God damn it, what does it take to convince these people I'm out to kill them? And I like that about him, where it's just like this, the monster Kane doesn't even know what he's really after. He's just convinced himself that this is what he wants, that he's a killing machine. And it's still that survivor's guilt. It's still that waiting for the grave to find him nonsense. And he's accepted somewhere in his head that he is unable to accept his own desire to die. He can't make peace with it. He can't square that circle. He can't actively kill himself. But he refuses to believe that he has any right to go on living. And so his brain is trying to mesh these two concepts together of, I refuse to die, but I cannot continue to live. And that would continue on with his multiple failures. Viola realizes that she's not really going to be able to use him as like a secret assassin. Whatever's going on with him, he's not very good at it. But he's disrupted them, he's pulled them out of formation, it's enough. And so she goes, before anybody can mobilize to their aid, because I've heard the rumors rumbling through the network of people maybe wanting to help, and I've done what I can to kind of dissuade that, or to limit it just to equipment. No, maybe the Scarlet Order's got it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about this. She might not even come back. She was buried under a whole mountain of rubble. She's shown no signs of returning so far, and everybody who's seen things to the contrary are all dead, or frickin' locked up inside the Western Fortress, unable to get out. And so she's like, okay. Now's my time. We are going to do my final assault. And Ember, upon seeing movements that imply that she's getting ready to do a final assault, she has no idea what Viola has planned, but she sees that she's mobilizing for a final assault. And so she brings the Staff of Creation to Aurea inside the Western Fortress via her vehicle as subtly as she possibly can. And hearing everybody inside the fortress talk about Kane, right? Hearing them, talk about how they know of him, how they're worried about him, and they're like, she's like, he's been trying to kill you. It's like, he's not actually trying to kill us, though. Yeah, he's fighting like the Dickens. But if he was trying to kill us, he could have. He's not a bad warrior. He's not really giving it everything he's got. Some part of him is still alive in there. It's like, well, if he is still alive, do you think you'd want to live this way? No. But it's not right to let him just give up. He didn't let any of us give up. Dude survived and went through so many traumatic things and refused to die. He kept coming back, he kept encouraging us, kept building us up, making us believe in a brighter tomorrow, even if we weren't certain he believed in it. But he kept picking us back up and making us believe that we could, become better and save the day. And it would be really sucky of us to give up on him in his darkest hour and stop and tell him there is no hope, there is no bright tomorrow for you. This is where your story ends, when he wouldn't let us give up. So, and this is where White goes, yeah, frankly, I'm going to do it out of spite. And it's like, what do you mean you're doing it out of spite? You go, well, frankly, he didn't give me the chance to give up, and he didn't let anybody else give up, so frick him, he doesn't get to give up, because frick him. You don't let anybody else surrender, you don't get to either. Frick you. It's like, so do you like him? It's like, frick. Frick him. Frick him and everything he stands for, except the giving up part. He doesn't get to do that. It's like, so does he? And Amaranth takes her aside and goes, yeah, this is how these two interact. It's like, oh, is this a guy thing? No. I mean, people will tell you it is, but no. I have two brothers. They don't act like this. This is entirely a Cain and White thing, and I'm sure there's other guys who do it, but this is a Cain and White thing. This is whatever they have going. And White's like, frick you, whatever they have going. Frick him, frick you, frick the whole horse you came in on. Like, and she goes, see, this guy right here, it's just him. And Blaze goes, I mean, he's right though, frick him. It's like, see, it's not just guys. And Blaze goes, no, I mean, like, he cut off my whole leg, right? And now he's going to sit here and whine because he's lost all his limbs. I mean, dude, you got to one-up me that way? And as Aurea sees them transition into dark humor as they're coping with this, she's realizing the whole point of it. That why folk heroes exist and why these terribly tragic stories get painted over with pastels and told in an idealized way. But also why the struggles these people have been through were necessary to let the happily ever after happen. That it was only by overcoming these trials and growing stronger for them that they could become a better version of themselves, and by becoming the best version of themselves, they became an ideal for other people to strive for after them. And how by covering over the many terrible things or the many terrible events that happened to them, whether it's actions they took or things that happened to them, by kind of minimizing the bad and elevating the good, you create this general impression that life is hard, but it's better when you have something bigger to strive for. And it highlights the brilliant good impact that these stories have. They inspire people to want to overcome the bad, to become the good, because you've made the good sound so much better, and you've made the bad sound like what it is, which is just a passing instant. In the moment, bad events seem like they're going to go on forever. They seem like they're going to be the rest of your story, and they feel like that's where your story's going to end. But it never does. So when the story gets retold, they're told for the fleeting moments that they are, the speed bumps on the path to glory. And that may not have been true emotionally in the moment, but in the broad scope of the story, that's what they were. They were speed bumps or detours between you and your ideal self. She's like, people need to be able to believe that's possible, because in these dark moments where we can't get out, we can't do anything, and we have a friend trying to kill us who's convincing himself that he's a monster when he's really just kind of sad and broken and looking for his own grave, it's in these dark moments that feel like they'll last forever that you need to be reminded that there is a light at the end. There's hope. There is a sun that's going to rise in the morning. And it's by remembering that there will be a sunrise that you can comfortably go to sleep. And she's really like putting that together, what the role of folk heroes are, why they're necessary culturally, and the struggle that they have to go through to become something meaningful. And how if you rob them of that struggle, it becomes empty. Just a happy life with no struggles. And without those struggles, without those sad times, nobody can relate to that. Nobody can understand that. We all have something. And so these people have to undergo trials harsher than the average person has to go through. So that way, when they shine out all the stronger for it, people are not scared to take larger risks and become a better person. So that she's like putting that together as she's sitting in here. And so she makes up her mind as to how she's going to use her abilities. She knows exactly how she wants this story to end. And she doesn't say it out loud to them at the time, but Aurea knows exactly how she's going to end this tale, and she knows what she's waiting for. Because she could go with what she has and claim the Sword of Destruction right now. But that's not how she wants the story to end. There's something that has to happen first, beyond just this struggle for the artifacts. And so that's what she does. She waits for the next morning with them, and when the army comes, and Viola's leading it, Aurea makes clear, it's like, yeah, I'm going to stay inside the keep and run interference in case somebody gets in. I'm still the least experienced of us all. I'm not as strong as you guys. You guys go on ahead. You guys go fight that and protect the keep as best you can. I'll stay here in case something gets through. And they go, you know, that's fair. What if she tries something sneaky like she tried in the Eastern Continent? This is for the best. Having at least one person in here that can run defense. Aurea knows what's going to happen. In a sense, she's already seen it happen. And to a degree, she's impressed that her father had seen it happen because he's just a mortal man. He didn't know the specifics, but he knew this was how it was going to go down. And he counted on them each being who they were to get here. He counted on human nature, the drive to survive, and the kindness and love that unites people in moments of crisis to win out in the end, right? So they are outpaced, outgunned. But they're going to step out on the battlefield against these zombie monster warriors of the past with their intelligence intact, but brainwashed. It's a whole thing. They have all of their intelligence, but they have the same devotion that Perry had. It's crazy. But they step out on this battlefield, and I'm going to find the name for it, and I'm going to listen to it while I'm doing this, because it is easily one of my... The next part is a giant battle scene, but there's a specific theme song that I always imagined for it. I think it's Phantom Tendency. Yeah, Phantom Tendency, Stardust is Unbreakable. No, Stardust is Golden, sorry. And it's... Yeah, it's this version. So I'm going to listen to it while I'm doing this. In fact, I'm going to make a point of making a spot in here that does that. So we are... Okay. I am going to start playing in the background while I'm describing this. So they step out, full regalia. Just... Their forms, you can imagine in slow motion, light glowing, wind blowing, army posed against them. There's like 4 of them here. A fortress behind them with automated turrets. They're drawing their blades and they're getting ready and they're about to confront them. And it's scary. Viola's laughing at them, mocking them, looking down on them. They're getting ready to fight. And right when they square up, Olivine Company breaks in, along with all of the people from the Beastkin political groups. And the introduction to this is Olive's wires just latching on to one of the villains' heads and just shredding it. And she's sitting here walking through the crowds of enemies, twirling her razor wires, super heated, walking around like it's nothing, just dancing between people's attacks, just a sea of blood and death. And as she's doing that, the leader of the other political movement, he's a big old burly guy with a big old heavy blade just cleaving people through. You got all kinds of just violence. You got Sable coming through, beating the crap out of people, just like snapping people with his claws and teeth and ripping them to shreds. Ambushing them from behind, too, so this was completely unexpected, right? And they're just tearing through the ranks while the heroes are stepping out of the fortress and fighting their best fight, too. And in the middle of the fight, Amaranth and Olive end up meeting up. She goes, I was worried you weren't going to make it. And she's like, nah, I wouldn't miss this for the world. Party at the end of the world, am I right? And it's like, you were always this reckless. Honestly, it's crazy. And she's like, no, it's fine. We got this. We've never failed at this before. Why would I have to be scared now? And as she's doing that, the clans from the Eastern Continent break through alongside Wynn Salvia. And Wynn is leading their military. And he points his blade, and they are cross-fighting it. And there's all kinds of artillery being fired from some of the Summer tribe had provided Wynn some of this technology. But Wynn's leading the eastern clans, right? And they're sitting here, they're shelling the whole area, but they're also sending in their best warriors with spears and swords to start cleaving through who they can. And they are efficient. Wynn is basically walking through them like they don't exist, and just cutting them like... People don't even see him drawing his blade, and he's just cutting clean through them. And it's weird, because he's wielding two blades, which he normally doesn't do. And it's very eloquent, very designed. He's dodging around things, slicing them through. Some big guy throws a rock at him, and he just cuts it in half and keeps walking. Makes his way over to his daughter. And he sits here and he tosses her the blade. And as she grabs it, the swordsman from before shows up to confront her. And he brings up that it's time for them to finish this. And she goes, oh, that's fair. We're going to settle this right here and now. And as she's saying that, aircrafts are firing down on the crowd from above, as the Northern Army has now arrived. And they are using airships and all kind of technology to rain down death. And Contrasa's leaning out the side of one of them, shouting orders, full military regalia, laughing her head off as she's watching her favorite students kick ass. And she goes, Dia, you seeing this? You seeing this? We're kicking ass. It's just like, can you have a little bit more decorum? It's like, nah, I really can't. And as this is going down, and she ends up jumping out with her blades and just getting lost in the madness with a few different shock troops with her. Now these people have been thoroughly broken. And in all the mix of this, Viola manages to get inside the now seemingly empty Western Fortress. She slips in all the chaos. But there is a lot of fighting going on. And Amaranth is fighting the swordsman, and she is dodging effortlessly between the strikes, even as he's trying to change them with the monster blood, switching between blades effortlessly. Just, she pulls out she even tosses him the blade of the south at one point in time, and then immediately cuts his arm off and takes it back. Like, she's fighting him, and if she didn't have her ability, she'd be dead 10 times over. But because she's full of resolve, and she's using her ability effectively, it's not a problem. So as he's sitting there in the middle of a battlefield, utterly disarmed, torn apart, she stands over him and goes, "Do you yield?" And as he's sitting there about to say it, there's a fight brewing on the top of the fortress. Because you see, Viola had found the sword. And Viola laughs maniacally as she wields the Sword of Destruction. Only for Aurea to show up. She goes, another one of those weird puppets. What chance do you think you stand against me? And Aurea goes, it's a real shame. You could have been so much more. And she waves the staff, and what she wasn't expecting is that she used the Staff of Creation to create a network that unravels her. She created a runic network that unravels Viola. And she goes, you had so many struggles you could have overcome. You don't understand, though, and you never could. Their story is theirs to tell, not ours to interfere with. And as she's being undone and unraveled and disintegrating in her current avatar form, which is supposed to be so powerful, Aurea claims the sword from her now. As she's screaming in agony and being unraveled, Aurea walks up and takes the sword. And looks to the sky, waves the staff, and sunshine breaks through. And as the sunshine breaks through, people don't know why, but the monsters have just seemingly vanished. They were there, and you can still see the corpses. You can see people still fighting, a few of them. But the army's been defeated. The battle's over. And Amaranth doesn't know why, but she's confused. It seems like it's just... to end this way, it's like, yeah, it was satisfying, but something seems to be missing. And this is when Aurea makes herself known. She shouts from the top of the rooftop that she has all 4 of the artifacts, that Viola's been destroyed, and the Lightning Queen will bother you no more. And then she explains that since she is artificial life, using the Staff of Creation to preserve her own existence is going to be no issue. She's able to preserve her own runic networks and her own parts, because Zoge built her durable in the first place, and she, thanks to the Light of Knowledge, she's able to figure out exactly what's wrong with her runic network. She's able to accurately record it in a unchanging data storage, and maintain it should anything happen. And since she can just use the Staff of Creation to renew any of her parts, she is effectively immortal. With the Circlet of Choice, they don't have to worry about anybody brainwashing her. And with the Sword of Destruction, should any threat come that is too dangerous for the common man, she can have it removed. But she doesn't want to deny them this right of survival, this challenge that forces growth. She wants them to be able to continue to grow and expand and evolve. So she's going to keep her influence to a minimum. She's not going to involve herself any more than is necessary, but she wants to reinstitute the Scarlet Order. She wants to reiterate to people that the Scarlet Order, while it is independent of all politics, is a necessary structure, because there are those who are undergoing great trials. And without that reminder that there is light at the end, that they can be better than that they can excel and become something more than the trials they're undergoing, then the world will fall into placation, stagnation, and death. So she will step in to encourage these heroes to grow as necessary, and provide them what they need when needed, but she will not rob them of struggle, because their stories are important and they are theirs. She brings up that she could bring back Zoge right now, but it would undo the point of his sacrifice, undo the point of everything he gave up to give us this chance to set everything right. And so she says, I don't expect you guys to think of him as a hero. I would never dare say that. But I, for my part, appreciate the sacrifice he made of his name, reputation, and credibility to give us this one chance to save everything. And she just pieces out. And I didn't know if I wanted to make this an epilogue or a part 5. So if I ever write it, I'll know then. Because it's such a thematic theme to end on, of her just explaining the need for folk heroes, what she's going to do, and her role moving forward, and just acknowledging the sacrifices everybody went through to give this shot at hope, and the fact that she's going to make sure there's a measure of peace. You know, she's not going to rob them of struggles. She's not going to automatically fix everything. She's not going to rewrite people's brains or anything like that. But she wants to let everybody know that she is going to be making sure that everything will be okay in the end. Anytime there's a big, scary event, she will make sure that the right people are there at the right time to save the day. And the epilogue, I missed one of the things during the fight. I got so caught up in the music video-ness of it all. But before she fights the sword person, relatively early on in the fight, actually, probably during the Beastkin part of the fight, Cain confronts Amaranth, hoping that, like, some against his own logic, because he knows she doesn't have it in her. He confronts her in hopes that she would have the mercy to kill him. And she won't even draw her blade against him. She fights everybody else and completely avoids him and says, look, this, like, whatever you've got going on, the world is ending. If you want to die making it mean something instead of pointlessly putting that guilt and responsibility on your friends. And that's why I forgot. It's a big moment for him that he, like, fights against his own depression and his own self-delusions to force himself to a fight to the death to save the world, which he still doesn't die from. But the big thing to take away for the epilogue is that when he gets that awakening and he snaps out of his own depression for a hot minute, his paradox gene goes rampant and it ignites the monster parts. So in the epilogue, he has survived, and he has become the spouse of Opal. Like, he's married into the Oceana family, but he's very much a cripple. None of his his arms barely work, and his legs barely work, and he's very slow getting around, and he has a nice little cane. But he's smiling and happy, and he takes care of people, he encourages people, he's a therapist now. And that's the thing, he's still scary, you still don't want to fight him. He has basically become the next generation of Rosa, because he's seen some crap, and even though he's a crippled old man, he's still gonna kick your ass if you try. Like, he could, but his body is too scarred and broken from everything he went through. And so it can't make a proper recovery. He will never be as strong or as fast or as capable as he once was. He's officially a cripple now. But he doesn't seem to mind. He's found his peace, he's found his niche, and it's away from the battlefield. And you know what? It was always supposed to be away from the battlefield. In fact, if he still had working arms, he'd be a blacksmith. But instead he has to train others to work the steel, so his family legacy doesn't die with him. But that's fine, it'll be great. And so he's that way. Olive has continued to become a complete freaking crime boss, and now without her brother's organization to get in the way and to drive her, she's literally working with Connor in this, like, she gives people offers they can refuse. And it's like, this is like, what, 10 years after the fact? 10 years on is my epilogue, because why not? Amaranth is the head of the new version of the Scarlet Order. She's very content in her role as a hero. She's going around, like, finding new trainees. And instead of the old way of, like, life sucks for a hero, she's showing people how great life is as a hero. Like, she tells these stories as they are, but instead of... she doesn't, like, hide the bad at all. Like, she doesn't sugarcoat the bad. She even says, oh yeah, no, it was dark times. We weren't always sure we were going to get through. But you know what? We did. So it was terrible. It was some of the worst times of my life, but we survived. And if I survived that, you're going to be okay. Like, she doesn't sugarcoat anything. She's very honest, but she's very gentle, very motherly. Zoge is... when he's taught in history class, Zoge is separated from Aurea. They are treated as two separate historical figures. Zoge is treated as the man who sacrificed himself to, he's the one who freed Opal so she can go do things on the Eastern Continent, and he was there at the Battle of the Crimson Keep. And Zoge LeBlanc is considered a hero. But Avario LeBlanc, who is considered his evil twin, that's their workaround historically while they bury the truth. His evil twin, Avario, came and wiped all the crap out. But In a brilliant tactical move, Zoge killed both of Ario and the Lightning Queen for daring to bring, unrest to the land. And that is the official edict and direction from Queen Lucy, who she is working very carefully with people. She wants to make sure she's not dealing with anybody who has unsavory intentions for the world, but she also knows that she has a series of reliable assets within not only the military in the form of Contrasa, Dia, all that, but also in the form of the newly formed Scarlet Order. Like, Amaranth and everybody a part of her order would absolutely be there in a heartbeat if there was any kind of, corruption going on. Not from her, but like if she goes, hey, there's this one noble he's doing some corruption that I can't fully prove, and I need somebody to come investigate. And if they find anything, they need to categorize their evidence really well. But if the Scarlet Order has to get involved, the Scarlet Order has to get involved, and I'm not going to stop that. So that's what's going on with the Northern Continent. The Western Continent, despite everything that happened on it, really hasn't changed much. It's still rough as it comes, but that's just the way it's always been. The Eastern Continent no longer struggles with their history with beastkins anymore. In fact, if anything, due to the actions of the people in that final battle, the beastkins, generally speaking all around, have in fact proven their worth. They helped during this great crisis, where the Lightning Queen came back, and the beastkin were the first on the scene, and came in force. Pretty much every single battle-ready beastkin on the whole planet was ready to come running to the aid. So it's... And so that it's, even though there were some that were on the other side, it's not what's remembered by history. What's remembered by history is that every beastkin who had the possibility to stepped up and went and helped. And the southern continent they've measured out and made peace with Wynn and let him and his kind, stay there. The lesser nobles are annoyed that Wynn is apparently still the frickin' untouchable sword god. Because dude handed his best sword off to his daughter and was still able to fight with some flimsy, fresh off the rack, untested nonsense. Which he still uses that untested blade. He used it one time in that one battle, and he's just kept it ever since. It's like, why? Like, well, I needed a new sword, and it survived one of the most important battles in the world. I shall name it Taiga. It's like, why, though? It's clearly, like, it's not even... Any swordsmith taking a good look at this thing would be able to tell it's not a very good sword. It's not very well made. It's loose inside it's loose inside its grip. It's got all these flaws, and it's like, it was enough. It survived one of the most important battles in the world. And the general consensus from his family is that he genuinely believes the fact that he is able to use this thing effectively as like kind of a proof of concept for himself, that even if he were to die against somebody, it was the inferior blade, because the swordsman has been able to use this thing effectively for years. Like, he's taking solace in the fact that when one day he is bested, if it should ever be in combat, it will not be because his skills have rusted, but rather because his blade was inferior. And the hilarious part is that Lav has repeatedly joked about talking up the legend of Taiga, the blade Taiga. And like really talking it up like it's this legendary blade, so that hundreds of years from now, some idiot is gonna try using this thing like it's significant and important, and going to look like an idiot. That's Lav's entire thing. He's like, no, I'm gonna make this huge. I'm gonna make this a thing, man. We are gonna talk this thing up. We're gonna make it sound so cool and so awesome. And it is the crappiest blade I've ever seen in my life, and I am not going to stop. I am going to lie, and lie, and lie, until I make this a thing. But that's the end of the actual part in universe. The proper epilogue to the history of Eden Perpetua in this particular era is what happened it's a few centuries later, because there's a few more stories that happen in that timeline, but none of them are significant to anything that moves forward. They're just one-off stories. They're not multi-volume. They're not the big magnum opus. They're not the thing that makes huge differences. And I will tell them eventually, but they're not important for this part of the story. I have to tell this part now because we dealt with Aurea's whole journey, right? So Aurea, recognizing a potential future of herself in Viola, how if she allowed herself to lose her mind and go into this god complex, it doesn't matter. And it's like, you can say, oh, well, she wasn't always that way. It's like, yeah, she was. From the moment Violetta made Viola, she went mad with power and became a god trying to reshape the world in her own image. Like, that's the whole inciting incident before her brain was turned to Swiss cheese. That's what made her get her brain turned into Swiss cheese. So Aurea saw a warning example in that. And so she wanted to make sure she was treating everything with respect. And over the extended course of time, she eventually began to realize that there was more than just this one timeline that she was a part of. There was something else beyond the edges, just on the fringes of her awareness. And so she used the Sword of Destruction to sever the barrier between her and what she was sensing. She wanted to know what was there. And she found herself in the void between dimensions. Now, this void does not exist anymore. Because of what happens next, this void doesn't exist anymore. But the idea is, in the void between dimensions, thoughts can reshape reality or even create a brand new one, right? As she steps between them, she sees that her realm is an off branch of Yggdrasil, like a sapling growing up to the side of it. And then she sees Yggdrasil, and she sees all of these lovely ideas falling off the branches and fading into the void. She sees somebody stand there and she goes, what's going on and what's with these? Oh, those are ideas. Those are ideas falling into the void and disappearing. They've reached the end of their lifespan, they have to die. And she's like, okay, is there any way you can save them? And he goes, I've been trying. I have been trying over the course of infinity to save all of them, and there's just no way I can do it. I have tried so hard. It's just, and she goes, why? Well, because everything has to end eventually. These ideas cannot live on forever. They have to die eventually. She goes, but what if they didn't have to? And all of the ideas from the Yggdrasil began to spin and whirl and mix with the sapling next door, and all the ideas began to fuse into one, and then it spun and spun and spun until it formed this one. I jokingly call it a Kevorkian scarf because I'm an old school fan of Ill Will Press, but I also call it a Mobius loop at one point, but it's a continuous thread of continuity, a continuous quantum thread that loops back and connects back to itself. Just an infinite loop that feeds back on itself over and over and over again with infinite space. And that fills up the dimensional void and forms in Perpetua. And at the center of this infinite loop, at the center is Ulfinito. What little remains of the dimensional void, but one that is incapable of housing anything, because it is only nothing. Every other concept, every other existence already exists in the infinity that is in Perpetua, whether it's on the razor's edge between hope and despair, or in the infinite of the silence, which is just all possibilities, all emotions, all memories, all thoughts kind of melded into one continuous realm with no set cause and effect. Ulfinito is the very essence of despair. It is nothing. And you can go, oh, well, I mean, so it's death then. No, it is nothing. death implies a thing, because in order to die, you have to have been alive. And in order for you to have been alive or dead, you have to have been a thing. But there's nothing. It is the finite void. It is the finite void because the only thing contained within it is nothing. You can't go to visit because there's nothing there. If you were there, then you would be nothing. Or it wouldn't be ulfinito because you are there. And therefore something is there, and therefore it's not ulfinito. Anything that has been sent to ulfinito does not exist because the only thing that exists there is nothing. If you can be remembered, you're not in ulfinito. And it's this thing of like, when in Perpetua was restructured, the figure she was speaking to eventually became the director. The director is the very essence of... It is the very mask that authors put on to interact with their own stories. That is literally all the director is. That character did not start as the director. But due to the actions of Aurea over a course of time, and making in Perpetua, that character became the director. They became the mask that I, the writer, get to wear to interact with things. And the director... If the director decides not to write you, you don't exist. You are in ulfinito until the moment that I take you out. Because you're nothing. And you know what I just said about ulfinito? How you can't be there? Because that would imply something's there? That's right. If I'm not writing you, you're not there. You do not exist. You are not in that scene. You are not in that moment. You are stuck in the finite void of nothing, because there is nothing where you are. You are not there, because you are in the nothing, and you are nothing. And if you are anywhere else, then you are something, and you are there for when I need you. You're just not here. It's a whole thing. But anyway, the director is the face the writer puts on to interact with the story. But in the story... As far as anybody else is concerned, it's a character who ascended to the role of author of reality. And as he was working on this with Aurea brought up the idea of, like, she loves inspiring people and raising them up and giving them hope, but not everybody's responsive to the idea of, there's going to be a brighter tomorrow, the sun will rise tomorrow. Some people can only put their eyes towards the grave. Because she was remembering what Cain went through. Or even in his darkest moment, there were consequences. And the director goes, and you know what? You're right. There is no story without hope and despair. And every story worth telling has a balance between the two. And not every character is going to respond to the bright, cheery, there's gonna be a dawn tomorrow, which Aurea is a huge fan of. She cannot help herself. She's such a huge fan of heroes that she can't help herself. And so he went, you know what? I'm going to give a gatekeeper between insignificance and greatness. And if you are headed towards insignificance, or you're running out of potential because you're just too broken or wrong, or your backstory is too dark, we need to create somebody somewhere that can kind of play gatekeeper and give you something to bring you back into the story, or make you relevant, or help you have the power to change things. And you can't have a person who does that without putting consequences on. So you show people that, like, even in your darkest moments, you can make deals you will regret, and that every action you have has consequences, right? And so, Argento was born. Not exactly a inverse of Aurea, but a counterbalance. To use antithesis would be too rough, because she's not the pure opposite. Because both of their goals are to introduce hope into the world. Just one of them does it by giving you the light of hope and getting you to believe in the power of friendship. And the other one gets you through bureaucracy. Just endless bureaucracy that pisses you off until you're tired of it and you do something instead of just rotting away. And that's really what that is. Argenta in essence, the very concept of a Faustian bargain personified. She is the very essence of how bureaucracy can piss you off and make you want to burn down the establishment. And that's fine, she's okay with that. But since she was inspired by the concept of what Cain went through, of this otherwise optimistic person repeatedly pushed and broken until he realized that if he frickin' is going to die, he's gonna make it worthwhile, and he still couldn't even do that right. But since that's the idea she's based on. She was inspired by Cain's slow decline and last-second redemption at great personal cost. What she's looking for, more than anything in the world, when she's offering you hope, when she's offering you an out, is somebody whose determination and resolve to come back from the brink of nothing is so frickin' strong that they can basically force reality to bend to their will. Like, they shape probability and the very essence of reality by, as she would put it, being too frickin' angry to die, or something akin to that, just being so driven into a corner. And yet, you walk out of said corner that you've been driven into and locked into and put under all these padlocks, you walk out like there's nothing there. She loves that. She loves the idea that the more dire the situation gets, the more people become refined. They become this razor-sharp edge capable of cleaving any obstacle. And so whenever she sees somebody who is the essence of that, who is able to bypass even the obstacles she puts there, to be more than they were 5 minutes ago when they had no options, that gets her engine revving. She loves that. So when somebody tries to cheat her, which is a separate story, when somebody tries to cheat her, she gets very pissed. Because you're not supposed to cheat, you're supposed to overcome. And if you want to cheat, she will punish you. She will make you wish you were dead. She will punish you immensely. She will give you things to put back in your way until you overcome through force of goddamn will. There's no workaround, there's no clever loopholes. If you try and cheat her catharsis, if you try and cheat her, the thing that gets her engine revving, she will punish you until you get the lesson that you're supposed to entertain her. You're supposed to prove she's right, not sit here and think you're smarter than her, 'cause you're not. You're just not. She is the merchant queen of all reality, and she will have her payment. You want to try and get away without paying a price? She will visit one upon you. And it doesn't have to be a fair one. She can absolutely just, now you're paraplegic. Guys, stray cosmic ray fricked up your brain. Now you're paraplegic now. Stray cosmic ray made me paraplegic. Yep. Because you pissed me off, and you tried breaking our deal, and so since you seem to think you can get away without paying a price, I'm taking your arms and legs. They are mine. I can return them. I won't. I will not, because you pissed me off. But I can. I'm capable of that. That's a thing I can do. Do you know what would have kept your arms and legs? Not pissing me the fuck off. You know, that would have been great of you to do. You know, if you just done your frickin' job instead of trying to be all cheeky. And if you're cheeky in just the right way, if you bypass one price only to visit an entirely separate but equal, if not worse, price upon yourself, she might let you get away with it. Which happens in a few different stories. Where she's like, you know, I was thinking of visiting punishments on you. I really was. I was thinking about making that so much worse because you thought you were going to be clever. But then I really realized, I watched you and I realized you put yourself in an even worse position. You tried bypassing the cost I put on you only to make your own life infinitely worse. And that's funny. I like that. So I let you get away with it because, yeah, you get to feel clever because you beat me. Sure. But I get the last laugh because you're an idiot. You could have had it so much easier and you actively made it harder on yourself just to snub me. And I don't know about you, but I have to respect the hustle. I have to respect somebody who will do something just to spite me. And it's weird because she's temperamental like that. She sticks to her agreements pretty thoroughly, but if you try and get out of them, she will revisit them. It's that Darth Vader moment of, I've altered the deal, pray I don't alter it any further. Whereas Aurea is the goddess of Deus Ex Machina. She will give you all kinds of trinkets and prizes so long as you never let the light of your heart die out. And sometimes she'll be direct with it, and sometimes she won't. Sometimes she'll directly approach you under a pseudonym and pretend to be something she's not, to give her an excuse to pretend to be something, to give you free crap. And other times she'll just happen to leave it on the road in front of you, or, oh, I know you were just being held captive and you're being held to the floor, but, oh, look at that gun, it's just within arm's reach, you should maybe get it, and she'll, like, kick it a bit closer. It's like she's that. She is the very essence of the person who conveniently leaves plot devices around for you to save the day. Every B-shonen protagonist, loves her. Because that's, Kirito's battle healing? She's the one who programmed that in the game. She went, oh yeah, we need to have that in there. Why? Oh, because there's going to be a protag, and we need to make sure he has that. It's like, okay, how did Kirito save Yui? She saw what he was trying to do, and she made it just... She reprogrammed it at the last second while watching it. He won't know the difference. I'll just make it look like he's doing stuff. He won't be able to tell it was me. Every single, plot device or plot contrivance that makes life easier for a protag, she's responsible for that. Whether it's directly by showing up and bestowing a power-up at the one moment because you learned how to tie your shoes all on your own and you deserve a power-up. And it's weird because Aurea gets this mom complex about reality. She really acts like she's everybody's mom. She's like, oh no, what do you mean, oh no? Oh no, did you see that? Did you see? What? He stubbed his toe. Yes, and now he's walking with a limp. That's gonna change how that battle goes down. Don't you see? It's like, I can see how having a limp is gonna mess him up, but I mean, he's still gonna win in the end. Yes, but then the girl he loves, she'll never know that he loves her, because it's going to cause that girl to find out who he is instead, and then she's going to cause a whole different thing. And it's like, okay, but you can't have everybody be... No, I'd ship them. She's cute and she loves him, and I'm going to put the two together. And it's like, why? Because he's adorable, and we all need to believe in love. It's like, why is this a thing? And honestly, the director and Argenta have a whole thing with her where it's like, she wants to fuss over everybody, and she wants to give people free stuff, and if they're going through... she won't stop them if they're going through sad times. She still learned her lesson. She's not trying to rob people of their struggles. But she doesn't like grimdark, at all. If things start going too dark, she throws a few plot devices in there so it stays, neutral. She doesn't want to rob you of your things, but she doesn't want you losing hope at any point in time in your life. Life will always find a way. And she's life, and she will find you a way. If you just... And Argenta and the director have to shut her down. She's not, again, trying to rob you of struggle, but she doesn't want you to lose hope. If she thinks the hope in your heart is dying, she'll provide you a convenience to perpetuate it. Whereas Argenta kind of preys upon you having reached the end of your rope and giving you the choice to taking the power back in your despair-filled life and making a choice for you and seeing what you do with that. And the director can do whatever the director damn well pleases. And when I'm playing the part of the director, I make him as hands-off as I possibly can. Every now and again I'll step in to have a conversation with somebody, just cause it's fun. But when I am writing in Perpetua, the director is very hands-off. When I'm writing in Perpetua, the director acts through his intermediaries, Aurea and Argenta, and they just do what comes naturally to them, and it tends to solve the problem. it's very rare that I have to actively choose to put on the mask of the director and weigh in on something. And the one time I wrote a short story of that happening, it was me literally going, there is a version of a series of events for one particular version of a character where he's trying to become just the very essence of destruction, the void itself. And if that's what he wants, he can become nothing, because that's the essence of the void itself. So he can become nothing. And it was just to prove the point that if I wanted to, I can just stop a character anytime I please. That's really the whole point. So if I wanted to, I could step in as the director and just erase this character. Just stop writing for him. I don't even have to show up on screen. I could just stop writing for him. Ceases to be immediately. Ulfinito, you go. Your memory will outlive you, but you are gone. You can no longer act. This is the end of where that story goes. And I wrote that short story a long time ago, and it's literally just there to prove a point. It's well told, because I'm not going to tell a crap story if I can help it, even if it's one that's as silly as that. But that was the whole point, is to say it's like, if the director has decided that you will need to be removed from the board, that's what happens. You don't always get to see me do it, but that exchange is pretty much how it goes down. I take the character's side, lament the fact that I can't really let them continue being around, and then I erase them. And they cease to be. And the world's usually a better place when I do it. And that's all. That's how we came to Eden Perpetua as it currently is. There are other stories that form kind of the lore of Eden Perpetua, but that is the proverbial version of the magnum opus that led to Aurea's birth, and a little bit of how Aurea, Argenta, and the director all interact. I am going to be going to bed now. Have a good night, everybody.